This show is politically incorrect, and I'm just gonna warn you again. I may say some things that are a bit contentious, that you may not agree with, that appear offensive, but I'll let you know I don't mean the things I say necessarily. I may in fact mean the exact opposite of what I'm saying, unlike Joe White, who genuinely believes the racist and sexist things he says. He's not here right now, but if he was, I'd offer him a tissue. I also have to begin with this disclaimer in case I get misquoted by some newspaper reviewer who hates me, like Faith from The Confidant. No, I'm not saying anything bad about her, but all I'm saying is she works for a newspaper that is so brave, they valiantly misspell their own name on the front page of every issue. Give it up for The Confidant. Keeping up with the topical humor, the health minister has advised the prison management at Windhoek Central Prison to start issuing out free condoms to its all-male population. Now, this was declined by prison management on the grounds that it wasn't necessary in a policy that can only be referred to as hear no anal, speak no anal, see no anal. It's hard to get more politically incorrect as a comedian than having a white guy on stage making jokes at the expense of our fat, lazy, corrupt politicians. NBC is probably going to cut that joke out, so let me rephrase. It's hard to get much more politically incorrect than having a white guy on NBC One making jokes at the expense of our beloved, hardworking, and industrious politicians. It's okay, they won't get the sarcasm. Another thing that happened recently is the finance minister announced that there's going to be some severe budget cuts in the government, especially when it comes to government salaries. And it's good to see they're already starting to act on this by importing some cheap government employees that were made in China. Ella Duplessis, in the same vein, has started teaching Chinese to its students, presumably to prepare them to communicate with the future owners of this country. One of the introductory phrases that they're being taught is as follows. Jushi Namibia, Shushi Yuyen, which means, this is Namibia, learn the language. Now, Black History Month happened, as I mentioned before, and I've learned a lot. You know, I learned about cultural appropriation, and it was very upsetting to me to find out that cultural appropriation is being done on such a global scale, because that's a Namibian tradition. No loves for that joke. Okay, one thing that we've appropriated is the Fees Must Fall movement from South Africa, and UNAM and Polytech, I know I'm supposed to say NUST or NUST or whatever, it's Polytech, okay? They didn't know how to react. So, as any good university should, they did the only thing they could do, which is to copy off their neighbors and have the same response as the South African universities. Ta!
We're 7 seconds away, just as long as I stay.
I came across a quote the other day on the internet, which said this: I don't care if you're black, white, straight, bisexual, gay, lesbian, short, tall, fat, skinny, rich, or poor. If you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. And that quote is by Eminem, which is odd because Eminem also said, I'll stab you in the head whether you're a fag or les, a homosex, hermaph, or a transvest, pants or dress, hate fags, the answer's yes. Bit of a mixed message there. Now, no it wasn't. Now, a friend of mine the other day asked me how many girls I'd had sex with. And I said 16, and he said, wow, you managed to convince 16 girls to have sex with you. And I said, no. Okay. Now hold that thought. So far, that is my worst joke for the night. Okay, I'm glad some of you, some are still catching up. That guy was the first to get it. Despite this being the worst thing I'm gonna say tonight, I have yet to use the F word once. NBC censors, are you paying attention? Now, when I talk about feminists, I'm not talking about I'm not referring to the casual, ooh, let me retweet this kind of women's rights, equality kind of. I'm talking about the worst 90% of men need to die kind of feminist. Basically, one of my ex-girlfriends. I'm not a feminist because I shave my balls. And contrary to what a lot of feminists have told me, I don't actually hate women. I love women, I just hate feminists. I love women. We can do a Q&A session later. I love women. I genuinely do. All my best bitches are female. Now, what I don't like about feminists, just to partly answer your question, Faith, was that you? No, okay, sorry. I don't like the fact that they like to redefine words and redefine terms. It's very Orwellian. The kind of feminist I'm talking about is the kind who would say, I was walking down the street today and this man raped me with his eyes. You cannot rape someone with your eyes. I've tried. Especially if she's a feminist, because their vaginas are extra salty. Now, like I said before, I do love women, genuinely, and I really believe that they're the superior gender in almost every way. And I'll now tell you a story about an experience that I had with a woman that I loved. We had been dating for, some time, and she was one of those really sweet girls. She hadn't done anything really wrong in terms of, or inappropriate in terms of sex. She'd never gone down on anyone before. I used to go down on her, as every man here should. But she hadn't done it before, and it was a bit awkward, and she once said, okay, I think I'm ready, we can do this, and she did. And as she was, I'm going to put down my water for this, because it's an emotional story. As she did, like I said, we were in love, and this was really a very profound experience for both of us because it was her first time to do that, and despite the fact that she hadn't done it before, it was the best blowjob that I'd ever received. And I just couldn't, I knew that I had to acknowledge the moment because it was shared, and I knew that it wasn't just a physical kind of pleasure, but there was also emotion, and it was almost a spiritual experience. And At one point, she looked up at me, and I knew that she wanted me to say something to acknowledge that this shared experience with. She looked up at me with just eyes filled with love and joy and hope. And as my mind was just wild because it was an ecstatic experience, and I couldn't think of anything to say, but I knew I had to say something just to know that the feeling is reciprocated. So I looked down at her and I said,
my nigga, my nigga, my nigga, my nigga, my nigga, my nigga.